Good morning. Hey, good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Hold on. I'm so behind today.
What's
I guess well, nobody's listening right now. We got like 20 people in. I'll tell you right
hmm
now. I was asked to host a radio show, like on the radio in 200 markets,
wow?
about
Yeah.
wrestling.
Okay, I see. Well, that's good.
So that should be interesting. God, I got a crazy day. I really want this year to end. Like, I just want this to go away. I wanted to rant to you about something, but now that I hit live, I can't do it. So I'll tell you off the air. But I got really pissed off today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me hit a second.
What's happening?
Where is my Elgato? Okay, there we go. We got 2 ads today, Paul. Things are turning around. You like my shirt?
Yeah, what is that? It's like an
So,
Enron thing.
yeah, my buddy Tim Dillon, he's a stand-up. He's also like one of the top comedy podcasts right now in the world.
hmm
He talks about how when he used to get bored, he used to call his friends and family with a fake business. And sometimes
Oh,
it could be
nice.
real estate, and sometimes it could be just like an investment into it. And
hmm
he would play this joke on them, and as like a stranger, he would call. They had no idea it was him, and people would want to invest in his nonsense scam. And he would say like, "Hey, I'm
Oh,
scamming you. Don't be so gullible." So he started this thing called fake business because Enron essentially was a fake business. It was
yeah,
a scam.
yeah.
What a crazy concept. I mean, so yesterday, one of the girls that I work with in the office, she's younger. She's like 22 when she came by to pick up her last check because we just let everybody go. She's like, "What is that? Like, what is that logo?" I'm like, "Oh, it's a
Yeah.
parody of Enron." She's like, "What's an Enron?"
Oh boy.
I was like, "How old is she?" She's like 22. I'm like, "Of
Oh
course you have
boy.
no idea what Enron is."
Yeah, that's tough.
I don't think she was born when Enron existed.
I wasn't born when World War II happened, Andrew, but I know about it.
Well, you're a smart
no,
boy.
it's
That's why you're a very
uh,
smart boy.
anyway. Yeah, no,
Can I tell you, you're on my top list of favorite people.
wow. I know you're
Uh,
still a little raw from Chris. Is that what this is?
yes, I am very raw from Chris. But you are one of my
I
favorite people.
yeah, I hear you.
There's only a few of those that go on that
Hmm?
favorite list for people. I feel like everybody has that favorite list.
Favorites list. Yeah, I guess. I feel like I was gonna say most of my friends are just I feel like I'm stuck with them, kind of like friend, family. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but there are some who, yeah, definitely rise. Some, I mean, I talk to you more than any of my friends that I grew up with, or you know, just
I,
by
I
virtue of,
I do think it's funny when a lot of people don't understand how we're friends.
yeah,
There's a lot of that, and they're like, I had no idea that you and Paul are actually like outside of the show. Like you guys hang out like whenever he's in town and stuff. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah. I'm like, we've been doing a show for like 10 years, over 10 years. I'm like, we have to have some sort of relationship. I
yeah.
would
I
imagine
mean,
it'd be really hard to do the show. Like Rich and I have known each other for 26 years with the wrestling show.
Rich. Oh,
Rich, the guy that does the wrestling show with me.
okay.
I've known him since I was a kid.
Well,
Uh, we used to go to karate together.
mm. Oh boy.
All right, all right, all right. Let me. I'm having some internet problems here. Let me get the. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Paul. I'm never unprepared like this, but today I am. Got Glasswire, and we got Hellofresh. Wonderful. Oh, this shifted. Hang on. No wonder my camera looks whack, whack, whack. You're All right. Are the kids in town or no?
Yep. Yeah,
Oh,
they
good.
came. Kelly came home Sunday,
And she
Mark
just
came home
left.
Monday. Yeah, I mean, she had to finish up the semester.
All right. Test SS, test SS, test SS, 1, 2, 3. All right. Let me just tweet out that we're starting.
Delicious.
All right. Let me just do this one thing. Are you drinking already, Paul?
No.
Hey, chat room. Hey, Bob. Hey, Feed Me Donuts. Hey, Noel. Bob Hazelwood. Bob Hazelwood is one of the rare crossovers. He listens to both What the Tech and Matmen. I do want to mention a little bit about Chris before when we begin, Paul, if that's cool.
Of course.
I sent it to Leo and Lisa since pretty much he worked for them. I wanted to let them know. What the Tech is live. Last show of 2020. Is it? I think so. Maybe. Let's just say it is.
What's happening?
I think this is the last show of the year.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right. There we go. Let me just tweet this on my other page, and we are good to go. Today's the worst of show. Okay, that's good. And the shot is missing once again. Sorry. I don't know what happened. You know, we built this new computer, and for some reason, this shot will not save. And it's very upsetting to me. Cut to this. Oops, not fade. Cut. Input will be Andrew 2. Cut a number. We'll also add a thumbnail. Save. There we go. All right. Now we're good. All right, Paul, I'm ready when you are.
I'm ready. Okay,
boys and girls. It's time. It's time. Actually, it's not time because I lied to you. I don't have my live reads in front of me. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm sometimes unprepared, but not like this. I need my new copy for this. All right, is this it? Yeah, we've teamed up with Hellofresh. That's perfect. And I just need the one more. Sorry, Paul. I'm wasting your time. I'm very apologetic.
Okay, Dick. I don't care.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
So I'm on. I didn't realize I'm still on the beta for Big Sur.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing is
so
like
you're getting
falling.
like the future betas.
Oh no, well, I'm on a beta. Yeah, I am on a future beta, but it absolutely stinks, and it broke all my my email. I can't search my email, and half my emails don't load up anymore. So I need to wipe this thing out and just start over. All right, now we are good to go. I promise you, everybody, we can now start. All right. Let me just do one more thing. Load the pre-roll. All right. Okay, Paul. We can begin in 3, 2, and 1. What the Tech is brought to you by Glasswire. With Glasswire, you can see your current and past network activities, detect malware, and also detect bad behaving apps on Windows and Android. Use the code CYBER and get 50% off for a limited time. Glasswire.com. By Hellofresh. Hellofresh lets you cook, eat, and enjoy. Go to HelloFresh.com/80WTT and use the code 80WTT to get $80 off, including free shipping. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Zarin. Welcome to What the Tech. Of course, as always, I did a different intro today. Haha, joke's on you. I'm joined by Mr. Paul at the Ride. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
I started talking and I didn't realize I'm really off today. I just got to tell you, I've had a hellacious couple days. I'm done working for the rest of the year. This is the last show, last What the Tech of the year, and not that I'm glad it's the last What the Tech, but that means that the year is over, and I'm glad that this year is over because it's been nothing but disaster. It's been a disastrous year.
Yep. Yeah, this has not been a good year.
No. For people who kind of been following the show for a long time and has followed Twit and what Paul does, you may know a good friend of ours from This Week in Radio Tech, Chris Tobin. Chris is one of the most brilliant engineers in broadcasting. He was a VP over at CBS. He had just became the CTO for WBGO, a radio station in Newark, New Jersey, a jazz station. And on Saturday, Kirk from Twit messaged me and told me that he passed away. He had a massive, he went into cardiac arrest and shoveling snow in front of the radio station and passed away. And it's been very devastating for this community. I mean, not just this show, because I don't think a lot of people know, but whenever Paul did remote shows in Mary Jo, Chris was the guy that helped me do all of that. He came to events. A lot of you guys would know him from the Rattle and Hum meetups. He's done shows at Rattle and Hum, and that really was shocking to the point that I didn't even know how to react, and which is rare because normally I'm very cautious about stuff like this, and I always try to kind of anticipate something, negativity happening. You can't ever anticipate something like this, but it really this is the worst of tech. But I wanted to start this off because he was such an instrumental part to my career. Here, a lot of people may not know that Chris, literally, when I started doing these podcasts, 2009, I met Chris around 2010, 2011. And he really was one of the guys that taught me engineering to some extent. I mean, there's three people I would name. I would say Mike Phillips, Chris Tobin, and Kirk Harnack that sat there patiently, all engineers, and taught some kid that doesn't really have a formal background, and said, "Hey, listen, we're an open book. What do you need? What do you want to know? Let me help you. Let me guide you." And Chris was that guy. We would have conversations for hours at a time, sitting down on Thursdays, having drinks and just talking about radio, and just I would just absorb everything that he had to say. A devastating loss to many people. One of my close friends, and just I've been numb, I should say, Paul, for the last couple of days.
Yeah,
I've been extremely numb to this. I almost didn't want to do any shows, but I thought I kind of want to chug on and talk about this and just talk about it publicly. What a great man Chris was, and the amount of his reach isn't just with me. I should just say that he has helped so many people within the broadcasting world, podcasting world. So many people, selfless, never expected a thing in return, just wanted to help people, and just devastating. And I want to take a couple minutes and kind of talk about this because, the podcasting community is very small. Regardless of you listen to What the Tech, I imagine majority of our audience listens to you on Windows Weekly with Leo, and we all cross paths and we all kind of intertwine in this weird bubble of podcasting. And Chris was an instrumental part for many, many people over the last decade in this industry. And just my thoughts go out to his family. Just terrible way to end this year. That was, I could expect that, and I'm going to say this in a joking manner because I kind of want to change the tone a little bit, but if you told me aliens landed, I would believe you over hearing that conversation. Really, it was just a Saturday at 2:00 in the afternoon, I get this message, and I I had to read it because it just didn't resonate. It didn't make sense to me.
Right.
You know, I know that he was married to Lisa, and my thoughts go out to Lisa. I can't imagine what she's going through right now with this and his family. He leaves behind a brother and a mother, and I'm sure many others. So just another a great man, and just thinking of you, my friend. So
Could I, if
turn
you
around.
don't mind?
Yeah,
I mean,
go
I
ahead.
didn't know Chris as well as you, but I mean, he was one of those bright lights. And there have been a handful of people in my life where you meet them and you realize, my God, this is one of the nicest people on earth. I mean, he reminds me of my brother Jonathan in that way. It's just, if you don't like this guy, there's something wrong with you, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, he did a bunch of work for us, and he set us up that one time. I remember we did a show at CBS.
He did the show
But
at
he was
CBS,
always,
yeah.
yeah, and he was one of those guys. It was always great when he was able to come out and be with us. When, you know, back when I used to be able to go to New York, and I look forward to doing that again someday. I wish I could do it with him, you know. But he, I'm sure what his family, his wife especially, is hearing is what they've known all along. But they'll be hearing it from people they don't know, like people like me, you know, what an impact that he had, and what a great guy he was. It's just sad.
You know, tremendous impact. You know, last night I was having a couple drinks and I was talking. My wife adored him. I mean,
Yeah, well,
just
yeah,
she absolutely loved him and knows how important he was to all of us. I mean, listen, I built a career on not really working. Right, I'm lucky enough. I built this thing. It was a fluke. We started off as a comedy podcast, and 12 years later, 13 years later, almost. It's become a really nice source of income for me and my family. And Chris really sat me down and said, listen, don't give up. There's something you're doing that's working. This is working. I'm telling you, I work with people in radio. This is the future. Just do it. And this guy would, even when I mean, there were so many times that I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. And he's like, no, you have to. You got to do this. And the guy was just, there's only a few people that I could say, you know what, I could call this person up and say, hey, what are you doing? I need your help. This guy would drop it and come. I mean, just, I say this, he was a total mensch of a person. One of the nicest people to know, and one of the greatest people in the broadcasting industry. Legendary for what he's done. And, you know, for this show, he's been a huge help for every other project we've done. If it wasn't for Chris, I don't think I would be doing this right now. So it just shows you, you know, how it's those small things. This guy never had to sit there and take my phone call 10 years ago when I'm like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Can I buy you dinner? And can we chat? He's like, absolutely. You don't have to buy me dinner. I'd love to chat. So, a terrible loss. You know, early in the year, I lost somebody else, a good friend of mine, a police officer. He was a sergeant, 9/11 first responder, and very similar thing. I just got a phone call over the summer saying that he passed away, 59 years old as well. So it's been a non-COVID related. I just want to put that out there too, because a lot of people think when you talk about this, it's non-COVID related. I don't even know if that makes it better or worse. Nothing makes it better, but it just, I don't know. It's terrible. So just I want to spend some time on this and talk about him, which I'm going to be talking about him on other shows as well, because I've been asked by 1,000 people to come on and talk about you know how instrumental he was, and I said no, I don't care what time it is, I'll come on and I'll talk about it. So I guess we can move on. It's a difficult moving on, but from that really is the worst.
From the worst of 2020 to the worst in tech in 2020.
Yeah. So to kind of, you know, we do this show. Last week we did the best of, and obviously there were a lot of things that you know I don't like to sit there and make the list, because I like to talk about at the moment. Sometimes there's stuff that's really bad, and then we want to kind of dwell on this. But we have so many that goes on both, right? That goes on the worst of and the best of.
You gotta have a guideline here. I mean, there's probably 20 items each for either one of us on each list. I mean, that you could use.
Yeah. I want to, you know what? Let's make this a little fun. You know what I'm going to go with first? I'm going to go with Intel.
Wow. Nice.
And I'll explain why. This was a terrible year for Intel in the sense of they had supply issues. Another year where they did not have a good mobile chip to any extent. And the icing on the cake was the Apple announcement a couple of weeks ago that they are now moving to their own chipset, and they're going to be eventually leaving Intel. Also, which I kind of wanted your opinion on. Rumors are circulating that Microsoft is working on their own ARM-based chipset.
Yep.
To possibly move forward with. Is that now? Before we go into why this is bad for Intel, obviously we know, but we'll break it down. Is app? I know that Microsoft has been working on something like this, but is this a response to Apple, or is this something that they were planning on doing and they were always going to announce it at this time?
Well, they didn't announce it. This was leaked by
I'm sorry,
by Bloomberg. But no, you're right. Intel's on my list as well. Intel's problems in general are just like Intel's problems with Microsoft are something that didn't just happen this year. They've been happening, right? So Microsoft last year partnered with AMD for the first time to create a custom chipset for its Surface laptops. Microsoft 3 years no, that's not true. 2 years ago, a year ago, I guess. Actually, it was a year ago. Partnered with Qualcomm to make their own chip for a particular Surface model. This stuff has been happening. Like it's been happening. And the problem for Intel is that in the PC space, they've lost ground to AMD. They've lost the technical lead to TMSC and other fabricators. They can't get even to 10 nanometer reliably, let alone 5 or 7 nanometer. Apple's at 7 now, or at 5 now, and AMD is at 7, I think. But the bigger problem really is the data center stuff. And that's where the Microsoft announcement really factors in. It's really more about data centers than it is about PCs, because this is the volume market for chipsets outside of mobile. And when you think about the advantages that ARM has over traditional CIS chipsets like the Intel stuff, it all comes down to power management and heat and efficiency. And as much as we in our space tend to think about computers and mobile devices and things, really the advantages of those chipsets make tons of sense for these cloud data centers. And so I fully expect Intel to, I think we're going to look back on this year as that kind of inflection point for Intel where they lost it.
Yeah.
Even though right now they make tons of money and they're in okay shape and blah, 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 whatever.
And they'll be doing it for many, many, many years. But
well, because inertia is a wonderful thing. But unless they make some major changes, maybe buy another company or something, they're screwed. I think Intel is circling the drain right now.
Yeah.
And that's a crazy thing to say because, like I said, they're a huge company, but the future does not look good for Intel.
Listen, for a number of reasons, right? I think the desktop mindset is something of the past, right? So that's a big part. That's a big point of this. But
Andrew, this company got rid of its mobile-specific chipsets. They actually had an ARM license at one point. They got rid of that stuff years ago. They sold off their 5G chipset work to Apple last year, I think. I mean, this is.
Is it a leadership issue? Is it a because I mean here's a story for a lot of the younger kids that watch us, because now I'm an old man at 37. Intel's major success obviously comes from the late 90s boom of technology, going from the 486 to the Pentium. That was a big part. But the real thing was the the core processing of Intel chipsets. When they, I think people don't remember this, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, AMD was really on their butts with those K6 and K7 chipsets, the Athlons. And
well,
it was
64-bit stuff, and Intel had
better.
It was one big embarrassment. They had to copy AMD. They basically used the same design.
And Intel, luckily, I mean, they purchased that Israeli tech company that developed.
That's what led to that's why they even have core chips. That's that's what came out of that. The first chip they released was something called the Core Solo, which was a single core chip, which today sounds hilarious. And then the second chip was the Core 2 Duo, right? Core Duo, and then Core 2 was the probably second gen dual core chipset. And then, of course, today this quad and higher chipsets. I mean, but Intel could have fallen behind in both of those times, right? When the transition to 64-bit and the transition to these kind of mobile oriented, like what we now think of as U series processors. But they bought themselves some time. They were able to buy and catch up and do fine. What's happening now with ARM is not the same situation. This is death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
They're getting attacked from every direction.
Yeah. So just to remind people, I mean, it was really based on that core technology, the quad, the multiple cores and the hyper-threading and stuff like that. And now we've reached a different point where they need to scale down, and that was the biggest hurdle that they faced. They've had a tremendous difficulty doing this. But now with, not that Mac sales are their end-all be-all, but Apple has a great ability to change the perception of the consumer. They've done this. They did this with the Mac. The MacBook Air changed the perception of what a laptop should look like. I mean, forget about the performance. Forget about the people not liking it. But it changed the way we look at a laptop, the way that we look at a computer. Aesthetically, it was stunning. The Macs are beautiful, and that was a trend that we saw happen within the PC world with a lot of the clones. Now the PC world has its own identity. They've done a great job. The Surfaces have a great identity. HP has reinvented themselves from the early 2000s to now. Lenovo, everybody's putting out unbelievably attractive products that will work great. But what happens when the consumer no longer recognizes it's a necessity to have an Intel chipset, or when the OEMs say, you know what? Why am I going to go with an Intel and do the licensing and use someone else's? I could just develop my own ARM-based chipset.
Well, I mean, that's still an expensive and risky kind of endeavor. Some of the bigger companies can do that.
Microsoft can, right?
Microsoft can. I mean, I'm not sure it matters so much if Microsoft does on the PC side, but I mean, the bigger change here is kind of architectural and is industry wide. And I think more important than the PC though, is just the other stuff, right? And mobile and data center. So, Apple has definitely changed the story on the client side with the PC or the Mac in their case. And we'll see how that impacts the PC space. But at the end of the day, the PC market is sub 300 million units a year. Millions of phones and tablets are sold every year, all running on these ARM chipsets. And then the data center and the IoT kind of market, the smart home stuff, these are all going ARM. It's just the way it is. And at some point, you've got this giant pie with different size slices. And Intel is cut out of every single slice except for one, the PC. And even if Intel retained the PC 100%, which they won't, it's the smallest slice on the pie by far.
Yeah.
So they're right now they're the biggest player in the smallest market there is for personal computing. Yeah. And it's just going to get worse.
Listen, we're back to the core rush. I think that's going to be the future of the next 5 years of computing. We're talking about Apple possibly putting a 32-core ARM-based chip in their Mac Pros.
Well, I mean, it's a different architecture. I mean, that's part of it. But AMD has not experimented. I mean, AMD has implemented a multi-core approach on what is essentially an x86 style chipset, right, for PCs. You see, I don't even know what their PC processors scale to, but they are 12 or more cores, I believe. They're up there. They're really up there. I mean, and Intel has some stuff that kind of edges into that category, but for the most part, Intel's chipsets are 4-core, and then you get to i9 and 6 or 8-core, wherever they go. But it's a different way of looking at the world. It's not the megahertz wars of the past. And the one area where Intel had been successful is just ramping up the performance. The last time they did it, and this will be like probably their last hurrah in the PC space, is 8th generation core chipset, which would have been 3 years ago, 2 years ago?
3 years?
They doubled the cores, right? Remember, they went from dual core to quad core. There was no price increase. There was no battery life impact. You just got more cores, like double the cores. And now when you're giving kind of PC buying advice to somebody, the basic advice is just make sure you get a quad core. You know, that's the base, and then we talk from there.
Yeah.
So that was like that was the last trigger they were able to pull, and it's really just based on the success they'd always had in the past, and they really don't have anywhere to go from here because the 32 core thing you're talking about, or whatever. What is I think the cores today in the M1 are 8 processor cores, 8 GPU cores. On the CPU side, they're split probably evenly, but I'm not 100% sure. But normally on ARM, you see evenly split between what they call performance and efficiency cores. And this is the type of architecture you see in a system that was designed from the ground up to be used in a mobile device. It's not going to have fans, right? And battery life is of the utmost importance. Whereas the PC space to date, it's been more about performance than efficiency.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to go into more topics. Obviously, there's a ton that we could talk about. But before we do, I want to talk about a great sponsor of ours and a company that I absolutely love, and it's HelloFresh. Listen, the holidays are here. We're 2 days away from Christmas, and the last thing I want to do is eat leftovers once. I got my interns here. Look at this. Oh, look at this. Beautiful. Look at it. He's bringing the HelloFresh. No, don't cook it today. Thank you. Our intern cooks our HelloFresh.
He showed me for some reason.
Yeah. Hey, Jamie, can you pull up HelloFresh on the screen? Thank you. No, I absolutely love it, and I hate eating the leftovers for weeks and weeks at a time. So I just got my HelloFresh order yesterday. It came in, and I'm like, this is perfect. You know what? I'm going to cook for everybody on Christmas and Christmas Eve. And after that, you know what? I want to have something fresh, and that's what they do. Here's a great offer. Use the offer code. Go to HelloFresh.com/80WTT. That's 80WTT. Or you could use the code 80WTT at checkout, and you get $80 off, including free shipping. What they do, it's a convenient, no-contact delivery to your door for easy home cooking for the family, for you or the family. I mean, they have a family plan. They got a vegetarian plan. They got a whole bunch of these. So the recipes are easy to follow. It's simple steps, super easy. They put all the ingredients in there. Do you know how many times I've had a recipe? I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this. And now I need sesame oil. Where the hell am I going to get sesame oil at 7 o'clock at night? Do I want to go to the store and get it? No. You know what? HelloFresh, if it requires sesame oil, guess what? It's in there. You don't have to go and spend money just for one thing that you're cooking. They provide you with all the ingredients that you need. They have images. It's super easy, and your dinner is on the table within 30 minutes. It's awesome. HelloFresh is also the first global carbon-neutral meal kit company, which is really cool. It's delivered pre-portioned ingredients, so you're not overbuying, you're not underbuying, which is a tremendous burden, like I said. And it's a great deal. Listen, start the new year off right. You want to try something new. You want to eat better. You want to eat cleaner, fresh ingredients instead of ordering in every night. This is the way to go. HelloFresh.com. Use the code 80WTT and get $80 off, including free shipping. I want to thank HelloFresh for supporting the show. I absolutely love HelloFresh, actually. So easy to talk about them when you love the product. I want to bring up something that it's funny. Sometimes you see a product launch and you know it's going to fail. And Quibi was one of those for me.
Yep. It's on my list too.
Yep. $1.75 billion invested in this. And it failed terribly. Now, for people who don't know what it was high quality content that was being created. Like the Kardashians had products in there. A lot of people had secondary and third style shows on there, but they were short format and they were vertical. Right. The shows. At the time there was a huge portion of people that thought people want to watch television like this in a vertical style. Did not work. Did you consume any content from Quibi? No. I think their entire budget went to marketing instead of content.
Yeah. And they tried everything they could to sell this service to successful services, and nobody even looked at it. It was like, no, thank you. The dark side to this, though, so Quibi's kind of come and gone and whatever, we can joke about it, but this is part of a bigger problem with this year, which is that there are just all of a sudden too many streaming services,
Tremendous amount.
Yeah. And it's it was already confusing enough. When I go back like 3 years ago, when I moved to Pennsylvania, I wrote a lot about cord cutting, and I've kind of filled in the gaps in the time since as necessary. But um, at the time, you could get something like YouTube TV for $35 a month, and they were still lacking in some channels, of course, and those things kind of came on. But you could make two cases for cord cutting, and one was that you were going to save a lot of money, and the other one was that you now it was very easy to go from service to service. There were no long-term contracts, et cetera, et cetera. But unfortunately, what's happened to streaming services is that it's kind of like the cableization of streaming services.
Oh, it's even worse. It's even worse.
I just Hulu with live TV and no ads is like $90 a month or something now. I think YouTube TV is probably $75
$75
from $35 at launch, right? In just a few short years, the prices of these services have more than doubled. And it's because all the content creators are now doing to them what they already did to cable, which is ruin it. And what this has caused, and of course the switch away from cable into these kind of decentralized services has caused the content makers to make their own services. So things like CBS All Access, which came out last year, or Peacock, which is the NBC version of that.
Yeah.
ABC, which is owned by Disney, with blah blah blah. They have at least 4 different services. I know they have Hulu and Disney Plus and ESPN Plus, and I think some other thing. And it's like, guys, you can't really save that much money or any money now by going to streaming services.
No. There's no saving money.
But you still have the advantage of going from service to service. And I often talk about, you can do Netflix this month and do Hulu next month, or however you want to do it, based on what's out there, and save money that way. But it's just a confusing mess, And a lot of times you'll read a story about some great new series and you'll be like, oh, this sounds awesome. Where is it? And you're like, what is this? Where is this service? Like, you don't even know what it is. Like Epix has a service, like it's it's too much. And Quibi was part of the problem, and it was probably a really public, example of the problem. But
it was also targeting a younger generation of media consumption. And think about how specific you're looking at the people that are on TikTok and Snapchat. That you took you took the TikTok model of vertical videos, shorter format. Obviously, we're talking a couple minutes instead of a couple seconds here. But you have TV executives and you have tech executives like I believe HP's former CEO, right? Meg.
Oh, really?
Meg Whitman.
Meg Whitman, the former, wasn't she the former governor?
Yes,
candidate, gubernatorial candidate.
She was part of it. A lot of Hollywood people were behind it, and it was just a lack of understanding of how people consume this stuff. There's no circumstance in the world that's going to make me want to watch a show like that vertically.
Well, this is like when old people hear about hip stuff that young kids are doing, and they try to emulate it, and they have no idea what they're talking about.
But man, what a push it was marketing wise for this thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Huge push for it. Terrible.
Disaster.
So that's definitely on my list here because I think it well, listen, you kind of bring up, you kind of touched on something else, cord cutting, right? The whole concept was, for most people, was that I'm going to eliminate the service because I want to save money. I don't want to pay the box rental fee. I don't want to pay for cable. I don't want to pay $120 a month. But in reality, if you want, if you have YouTube TV and you want HBO, you're paying $120 something.
That's crazy. It's
already.
Crazy.
And it is crazy. It's nuts because I'm looking at what my bills are now because everybody is, right? We're in that mode again where we're like, okay,
you know what's going to happen, Andrew, too? They're gonna get rid of device rental fees from cable companies. Like it's going to be regulated away. Yeah, I think they're starting with device rentals for internet routers. But like one of the big tips of 2021 is going to be, want to save money on TV? Get cable. Yeah. Like if you're already like, I'm paying RCN, for example, I pay them only for internet access. We're at the point now where it's like, just get a cable box. If you want to watch football games on Sunday or, live news or stuff like that, get the basic set of channels. You'll pay less now for cable. Just get it. Yeah. I mean, you're still going to get, Netflix and whatever else you choose to buy, to pay for it every month. But I mean, I think for a lot of people, if it's about saving money and having access to the broadest range of content, cable might make sense in ways that 3 years ago I was like, oh no, I'm walking away from this. It's such a weird turnaround. It's such a terrible development.
Well, even
It's too
satellite
bad.
TV, right? Satellite is
Or whatever.
suffering
Yeah,
even
cable or its
worse.
equivalent. Yeah.
DirecTV right now, AT&T, there was a story that came out that they don't know what to do with
Sure.
DirecTV because already they have a bad reputation, right? From the 90s of if it rains, you don't have service. But now,
Right.
you know, you're paying for your internet bill already. Your internet is, you know, $80 or $70. Plus now you got YouTube TV. Now you're at $140. Plus now you have Netflix and Hulu. You're spending like $300 a month at the end of the day if you have all these services.
So you can sit
For
on
what?
the couch and get fat.
Yeah, for what?
It's like,
For what?
I know. You know. It's a mess, and that's Quibi is a great example of the worst one of all, but it's kind of a symptom, I think, of a wider problem.
Listen, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be the year or not, but there's definitely going to be some sort of moment that people realize that they're spending way too much money on content they're not consuming. On top of that, also, listen, we have a Patreon. You have Patreon content. You have YouTube subscription. You could join for bonus material here, bonus material there. I think people are going to start realizing, hey, what do I really need?
You know, this is going to sound like it's a little off topic, but it's right in this channel. It's the same kind of thing. You know, Eddie Van Halen died a month ago, or whatever. Terrible, tragic loss. You know, and one of the things that's come out of that is a bunch of people that knew him have started posting videos and stuff that's just not been out there. And there's a recording studio in LA called Sunset Studio. They only fairly recently, I think, started up, or they restarted their YouTube channel. And they did it before he died, and they were just posting a couple of videos about whatever. They've been around for, you know, forever. I don't know the time frame exactly, but Van Halen recorded their first 5 albums at this place. So because Eddie Van Halen died, they brought in the engineer who was working on a box set that they ended up scrapping because their lead singer had come back, but it was all this great inside information. They just did a 2-part, amazing. I mean, if you're into music and stuff like this, you got to watch this. Dweezil Zappa did a 2-part, multi-hour interview. It was one of the best things I've ever listened to in my life, which is all these stories from the old days. And then they're going to have Ted Templeman come in sometime in the next couple of weeks. He's the guy who produced their first 6 albums. And so it's just for music lovers. This is like it's just a great thing that's happening. Okay, that's cool. But one of the things that Dweezil Zappa was talking about, and one of the things the studio is also involved in, is this notion of supporting artists who can't make money through YouTube or through Spotify and all this stuff, and they want to have a way to reach directly into their audience bases, and you kind of have a relationship with the band. So if you're into a particular artist or a group, they'll have these, you know, their own websites with Patreons and ways to pay them directly. And you can, you know, in the future, there'll be special concert things where you can get tickets to them, and there'll be better seats and all this kind of stuff. But I'm listening to this and I'm like, I completely understand it. Like from the perspective of a recording artist, things have gone south. They can't make money releasing albums. They can't tour this year because of COVID. So they're not making any money, and they're trying to figure out a way. They just want to live like all of us want to live. But the problem is they're going to do to music what we just talked about with video content. If you like the band Green Day, you're going to go to greenday.com. And if you like the band Van Halen, you're going to go to vanhalen.com. And if you like the band, you know, Dweezil Zappa, you go to dweezilzappa.com or whatever it is. And I get it, but, you know, but the system's broken.
Yeah.
You know, you shouldn't have to go to, I like 17 bands a lot. So I'm going to feed each one of these guys $1 or $5 a month or something to get access to their exclusive content. Like, it's too bad that the system we have now, which is basically YouTube and Spotify, doesn't work, you know?
Yeah. Well,
it's the same thing, isn't it? Like, it's just music versus TV and movie.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
You brought up YouTube, and I kind of want to touch on this a little bit. I didn't even have this as a consideration, but YouTube's Dmca takedown system, and essentially everybody's, right, is severely flawed. So like crazy flawed. And this year we really did see it kind of come to a head. Where people that were advocates of this are now saying this is broken. Yeah.
Well, here's one of the ways it's broken. Like, if you go to YouTube, because I wasn't sure where you were going with this, but this is something I've experienced. Like, we talked a lot this year about how much both of us have spent time watching YouTube. Like, we spent a lot of time on YouTube. And a lot of that stuff is clippy type stuff. It's like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes.
Aliens. That's all I watch.
Aliens. Okay. So what I see on YouTube is a lot of examples of like, here's like a song, like one song from a band that I happen to like. So that's why it's showing up. I'm trying to find one now. I can't find one, but it's just a song. It's not a video of the song. It's literally just the music. So if you click on it, it just shows the album and it plays the song. And it was posted by Bob Smith, not by the band. So I'm thinking to myself, well, how does this work? I just found one. How does this work? So it's like, well, okay, can I report this, right? And it's like, yeah, you can report it. And there's all these different things. You know what's not on here?
What?
If it doesn't infringe, like I can't say this infringes on the rights of the copy holder. I can't. The only way I can do that is if I own the content.
Or if you claim that you own it, yeah.
Yeah, so if I'm a fan of a band, like for example, Paul McCartney, I just found, this is the one I found. Paul McCartney just released a new album, right? If you go to iTunes, I'm sure he's charging 10 or 15 bucks for it. You can get it streaming over Spotify or whatever else. But some guy published the whole thing. So the video is just the front and the back of the album. And if you go to report it, there's nothing I can report it for. It's not terrorism. It's not child abuse. It's not a harmful or dangerous act. The only thing, it's one of the choices is infringes my rights. So Paul McCartney would have to go here to do this. Yeah. So this thing is going to sit here on YouTube until Paul McCartney complains about it.
So here's how it works. And it's very broken. So I'll give you the both sides of this. Obviously, okay. You don't want somebody profiting off of your work, right? That's the problem. So if this show is really popular and some guy takes it and starts uploading full episodes, that's a problem, right? I have all the right to claim a DMCA takedown notice. Mm-hmm. However, majority of takedown notices that are being issued right now are a sham. And I'll explain why. Here's a great example of how this is broken, right? My wife has an Etsy store. Yeah. Last year,
you're going to figure out a way to work in your wife's Etsy store.
I know. This is the new thing. I'm just working it in.
Is this the new thing?
This is the new thing.
Etsy is both the best and the worst.
And the worst. Well, okay. This actually speaks volumes about the whole system being broken with these copyright laws. She has an Etsy store. Last year, middle of holiday season, all of a sudden, her store was shut down for 120 DMCA takedown notices. A competitor that sells a similar product decided that this is how they're going to counter my wife's store being successful. They went through every single listing and flagged every single one for copyright infringement on their products. Okay? None of it. I mean, listen, similarity-wise, they sell the same style conceptual products, but it's all different. They claim that they own the rights to the artwork that we're using. So what do? I do a response, right? Like now they did the takedown. I now have to respond with proof that this isn't the case. Then once it goes through, I guess, the process of 1 month, now it's up to the company, Etsy, to say, okay, now we're going to restore the shop, which they did 2 months later. Now, what do I do? What can I do now? I have to now sue these people for tortious interference and claim.
You could also issue a takedown order against them for violating your ownership rights.
Then it becomes a pissing contest, right? Then I'm lying and they're lying, and it's a whole thing. You
keep them offline for 2 months. I mean,
I could have. What I wanted to do was sue them and sue them for tortious interference because it's also a federal crime to do this. Right. So I sent a very nice email to them, and they decided that they do not want to compete and sell this product anymore. But the fact that I had to do this in this manner, you know what there should be? Hey, what's the listing? Is this it? Okay, where's your proof? Where is your proof that you own this content, Paul? You don't have to show that proof. I mean, in God's honest truth, I could go claim anything, claim it, and automatically the judgment is in my favor, and it's now their responsibility to fight it. Nonsense. That's crazy. And you're seeing this with content creators. We had an advertiser where the advertiser provided us the graphical opening, and in 1 month, we got a DMCA takedown notice by another company. You know what it was? I'm sorry. It was a photo of a Microsoft device. I forgot which device it was. It could have been a Surface. It could have been something. We showed the image.
That's very common. We got hit by one of those on my website this year. Some goon trying to collect money.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's fair use. If I have it up for 3 seconds, listen, it's a totally broken system. And it's the fact that there's no answer here because the law is outdated, and there's nothing you could do when that's the case unless you rewrite.
The law's outdated, but these companies, YouTube and whoever else, are this is they're just set up to protect themselves. They're not doing a good job of protecting legitimate copyright holders. And they don't offer any way for a whistleblower to come in because they would be overwhelmed by complaints, right? I mean, I'm sure that's why, but it's astonishing to me that Paul McCartney can release a new album and it's just available for free on YouTube. And YouTube should be liable for that, Listen,
that's a slippery slope we're going down, right? And that's a big question of, are you a publisher or are you a pipe? Yeah, and that's going to be a discussion over the next.
Both.
They're both. That's the reality. You can't not be both.
They're more than they're it's also they're a publisher and a pipe. They're also an ad engine of which they are deriving most of the revenues. And this to me makes them culpable. This is how they're guilty. But anyway,
it's very interesting. And I definitely think that there should be a conversation around this because we have hit a point where the next couple of years, listen, it's not. And I don't really have this issue happen too often, but I have people that, they do a news-based show. And almost every show now, they're afraid because they're going to get some sort of takedown.
If it's news-based, you're literally, this is the definition of fair use. If you're reporting on an incident, you need, obviously if it's depending on the content and the type of content and yada, yada, yada. I mean, you should certainly at the very least should push people toward the owner of the, whoever created it, whatever. But yes, this is the definition of fair use.
Yeah. I want to continue this conversation, and I want to go into the big topic here, and I really want to tiptoe around this and not make it a political thing because everything is so politically charged. But I think Paul and I are going to do a good job at this next topic after this. But I want to talk about a great sponsor, and that's Glasswire, a new sponsor on the show. A lot of you guys absolutely love this service, love this company. The amount of feedback I've gotten is unbelievable. A couple of weeks ago, we gave away a Surface Duo thanks to Glasswire. It was phenomenal, and now they're sponsoring the show. And the reason why I absolutely love it is because this has been very easy for me to tell people, install this on your computer and see what's happening. See what your network traffic is. If you do a podcast, you're doing live content. We were talking about, a lot of my friends do this. The amount of issues that they have that they don't know about is unbelievable. I was recently doing a show with somebody, and they couldn't figure out why the connection was so poor. They were connected to a VPN, and they had no idea because it was a computer that they borrowed. But you know what? I told them, install Glasswire and see what's hogging the bandwidth. And they found it, which is great. You could detect bandwidth hogs with the app that slowed down your connections. You could see what apps are phoning home without your permission. Instantly know when a new unknown device has joined your Wi-Fi network. See what apps are slowing down your connection in real time. Block bandwidth wasters, spying apps, data hogs. You could detect malware as well. And it's a great job. You also get alerts when there's any kind of changes to your DNS server without your permission. And also, did malware change your Windows host files? Glasswire knows and will warn you of this. And listen, I highly recommend, go to glasswire.com now. Download the service. They have a pay service as well, but download the service. You could check it out, see how you like it. It's one popular feature, by the way, of Glasswire is how we have how they have the Virus Total API built into the software, and it's 100% free for anybody. So you just turn it on in your settings. Then every network-related app will be analyzed by Virus Total. Very cool. Very cool stuff. These guys are great. I absolutely love them. I highly recommend you check them out. Glasswire.com. I want to thank Glasswire for supporting What the Tech. So the internet is on my list of the worst
The
of
internet.
2020. The entirety of the internet.
That's incredible.
Last week we were talking about, and this is I know we're gonna get a lot of messages about this, so I kind of want to go into it.
This
Last
is not
week
what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, what were you going? What do you think you were going?
I thought you were going to talk about like the Chinese stuff, like TikTok, Huawei.
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's go with that. Yeah. Terrible.
No, now I need to know what's wrong.
Can I tell you? I secretly love TikTok. I'm on TikTok every night. I seriously, it's one of the things I just go through TikTok. And
you understand it's usurping our democracy, and that.
Listen, luckily for me, I don't work for the government, so my phone doesn't need to be clean white. Listen, I get it.
Right.
You work for the government. I kind of don't want you to have TikTok on your government issued phone. You know, maybe I don't want that. Yeah. Maybe I want you just to work for me. Work for the country.
But what's wrong with the internet?
So the internet, I don't know if you know this, is a cesspool, Paul. We've mentioned this.
Oh, maybe I do have this. I have this under social media.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, social media.
This is like misinformation and conspiracy theory.
So there's numerous parts to this, and there is no. I'm going to tell you right now. I don't have a solution to fixing this. Right?
Okay.
I want to present this in the best forward way, right?
I'll tell you what.
You know what I want to say
so much
sometimes?
About offending anybody.
I know, but everybody gets it.
What's wrong?
I have a big problem. I think anonymity is going to be, at the end of the day, the demise of the internet as we know it today. And I'm going to tell you why. Obviously, anonymity is a great aspect of the internet. If you are a whistleblower, if you are, reporting on atrocities happening in areas of the world that you normally wouldn't have the freedom to talk about, yes, it is very much needed, and there are services for that. But we look at Twitter, right? Twitter's a great example of this. I use Twitter. I thought I used Twitter like a normal person, but I guess I'm wrong. I don't put my dirty laundry on there. I don't argue with people. I don't get into deep political conversations on Twitter. I use it as a happy place, and I always felt that that's how the internet is. I've always used it as for positivity. However,
you're using Twitter wrong, Andrew. That's exactly.
I am. I know that's the problem.
What it's for.
That's the problem.
Not it.
Now, I'm a little bit different. Would I be a dick if I was not doing a show and I did not have my name associated to a profile? I don't think so, because that's not me. But
but hold on a second. There's a power of being anonymous that I think a lot of people don't even consider. Would you be more likely to be a dick knowing that no one could come after you?
Probably.
Actually, probably, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not inherently a dick, but I mean, you might be more inclined to lash out at people knowing no one was coming after you, like no one could, right? I mean, there's definitely a power to it.
There is a power to it, and just it was always like I would see it, like, especially with technology, right? Like somebody was, oh well, you're an idiot because you like a bag, but that's stupid. That's fine. But now we've got into deep political discussions with total strangers from the other side of the country, and you guys are now arguing what is the point. And I think forget about the discourse and the discussions, but there is some really bad stuff happening. People are doxing each other. They're contacting relatives, and because it's of a difference of opinion. And I don't know what the solution here is going to be. Listen, we as human beings, this is how we are. I don't care how far evolved we are, and we pretend we're this civilized. We're in the future. We're better than this. We're not. It just shows you that we're not. We don't have tolerance. We by nature, by human nature, we are not a tolerant group for other thought processes that totally invoke on what we believe. We have a big problem with this historically. I don't know, you know this. For thousands of years, Paul, this has been a problem. Now what we have is the availability that you could talk to anybody on this planet with different mindsets, different beliefs, different religious beliefs, personal beliefs, moral beliefs, everything. And now we expect everybody to be in line with our thought process. It is one thing to not agree on a political person or a political affiliation. It's another thing to become a trash human being. And this year, on top of COVID, on top of shutdowns, on top of financial burdens, on top of the presidential issues, this has now turned people into the worst version of themselves. And I am very listen. I have a libertarian mindset. I don't listen. I don't subscribe to any political belief at all. I have my own beliefs. That's how you should be. I don't like to be tagged. I don't like to be grouped into a team. This isn't basketball. This isn't the NFL. I'm not rooting for the Giants. To root for a group like, a team, it's silly to me, but that's just me. The big problem I have is it's not whether or not you want to fund welfare and I don't want to fund welfare. My problem is, how are we having these discussions? How are these discussions happening? It's very accusatory. It's aggressive. And this is what we've become. So how do you change that culture? And you can't. And this is what I made the joke last week.
Can't.
No, we can't. I made the joke last week about I would love to have a panel of guys that are way smarter than me doing this. Like Tom Merritt, I think he's one of the smartest people when it comes to this stuff. I would love to have him on to talk about what he thinks.
You need people who think differently. One example of this, I don't know if I was on Twit on Sunday night, and it was amazing because that was for me was that situation. I was on the show with Steve Gibson and Leo, obviously, but also Jeff Jarvis, and Steve and Jeff are smarter than I am, and they have different viewpoints and they have different areas of expertise or whatever. But we were talking about autonomous vehicles, cars that drive themselves. And Steve said, we were working on this in the 70s. It's impossible. Yeah. And it's not that like computer science progresses to the point where it becomes possible. It's literally impossible. But he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, we're approaching this problem from the wrong angle. The problem isn't cars having to drive on streets with people who are driving their own cars or people are crossing the street. The problem is the roads. If you want this to work, you got to change the roads. Put something in the road that the cars can follow, not have them look at the crazy shit that's painted on streets that's different everywhere and have them figure that out. The streets need to be consistent. And when you hear something like that, you're like, right, right. We have been going after the wrong thing. And by the way, solving the problem in the way that he described would be no less expensive and no more expensive, I should say, than doing it the way we're doing it now. It's just, he's right. Yeah. In fact, in many ways, it means that cars would become a lot more like trains, right? Which is kind of interesting. But anyway, he's right.
If the road is depicting where you're going, and these cars are intelligent enough, you know what?
Well, if it was consistent,
we're not going to, if it was consistent and it worked, right? You need a good track record.
You would
we could be flying at 95 miles an hour, and the roads are driving us.
That's right. Anyway, I just bring that up as an example because it just happened and it's fresh in my mind, and I thought it was genius, and he is a genius. But we need that kind of thinking to be applied to the spread of misinformation and conspiracy theory on social media, on the internet in general, on news, on whatever. I mean, we've already talked about this a lot this year. I mean, I don't know that there's much more we can say, but I can't solve it. I don't have the brain cells. We collectively can't. You and I aren't going to solve this problem. But you're right. It's not unique to this year, but it's gotten worse every year. And of course, this year, between COVID and the election, it has reached a fevered pitch that is just kind of unprecedented.
Do you listen? I'm an optimist, but I really hope that things change. Right?
Yeah,
like it's a new,
but I don't
forget about who you wanted for president, but it's a new president. It's a new start for everything, right? In 2021, vaccines here, things are changing a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be for the better or for the worse. I can't tell you that because I can't.
For the better.
Well, no, I'm saying
I can tell you that.
Well, I'm telling financial outcomes, right? If there's going to be an economic fallout, because the other shoe hasn't dropped yet, and we were talking about that. But I really do. I really hope people step back and they think about what's happened. Like, I know families, and I wish I was exaggerating this. I know families that have not spoken because they have a difference of opinion.
this is like I said, we're not going to solve this. We can't.
No, we can't.
All we can do is just say, look, this is, everyone knows.
But here's my question to you, right? Do you think, no, here's really, because listen, we're talking about smart people. You're smarter than me. Do you think
no, I'm not.
any, do you think, and I'm going to use the wrong words here. Do you think Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, for example, they're going to come to this realization where they say, listen, I understand anonymity, but we need to do something other than having this free-for-all where anybody could sign up. Facebook, you need your real name, obviously, for Facebook, but you got to sign up, and we need to know at least what this is.
This is related to the thing I talked about earlier with YouTube and being able to report copyright violation. These things are not all these things, whether the social media services like Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or whatever, they're set up to protect themselves, you know. And on the one hand, there is a wonderful, libertarian kind of thing to everyone can publish anything, and we all
doesn't
have
work like that, though. The reality,
but it doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work. And I don't finding, like I said, I can't solve. I don't have an answer. I don't know. In my own little world, I've raised this issue with the team of people I work with many times this year. I want to understand how someone can sign up for my site. They have to provide an email address of some kind, and then they publish spam. So I want to know why that happens. How it is not hard to require to have a system where the first 5 things they post have to go through me. Yeah. And I approve them. And once I do that, then they get to do whatever they want. And then they get monitored normally, like, because I see this stuff every day. And blah, 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 and nothing ever happens. And the whole year's gone by. And I just, this morning, I went through the comments. There was some spam. And once again, in my brain, I thought, for probably the 52nd time this year,
why can't we do this?
Why the frick don't we have a thing in place where we verify who these people are? Like and I've talked about, I play on Xbox Live when I play video games. You have a gamer tag, which is right there, a slice of being anonymous. And my gamer tag is not Bob in Akron or, some stupid name, some kind of humorous name someone thought up, or some stupid sexual or childish name. It's my name. If you see you're playing against someone named Paul Thurrott on Xbox, that's me.
Yeah.
And that's the choice I made, but that's not the choice most people make. It's like when you go play bowling and you're like, I want to, your name's going to be up on the thing. And you're like, you come up with a stupid name that you can all laugh at, it's cute in a bowling alley, but when you're out in the world and the internet talking about how COVID isn't real and now the vaccine they're making isn't real, it's like, dude, at some point your voice maybe shouldn't be heard.
Yeah.
So I can't, like I said, I can't solve it. It's just
there's no
evolution.
There's no fixing this. And the other problem here is
maybe there is, but
I don't know.
I said, it needs smart people thinking differently.
Exactly. They need to think differently. The current model doesn't work, because here's the other problem, right? Fact checking, right? Fact checkers. I got just who's fact checking? What are we fact checking? What are we not happy with? Sure. What words affected? Like I got a suspension from Twitter. 11 years I've been on Twitter. I got a suspension twice this year.
What?
A timeout. The first one was, I wish I was exaggerating. I posted a photo of Hulk Hogan, okay? And I wrote, how does one achieve this level of tan? Because he has the skin of a hot dog. I mean, this man is so overly tanned. I posted that as it's a joke, obviously, and I absolutely love tanning. So there you go. That's a joke, right? I got a warning for being insensitive with my comments. Somebody possibly reported me for a racial comment, and I got a 24-hour timeout, or a 48-hour timeout, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard me to make a racial comment?
No.
I mean, forget about it in person, but even online, that's not who I am. The second thing was, somebody tweeted something about 5G, and I wrote, and I alluded at the joke about the idiots that believe that this illness is being caused by 5G. Like, how does one have that mindset? Right. And I got a 48-hour thing for spreading misinformation.
I think they might have misunderstood what you were talking about. I mean,
I mean, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, well, is it an algorithm? Is it someone reporting me? And why can't I just be like, hey guys, hey, you made a mistake here?
all
You
right,
know?
we gotta we gotta move past this.
I know.
We can't solve this problem.
I know. So it's bizarre. All
I
that
had
is
this
bizarre.
on my list, but it was under social media.
Okay.
Misinformation.
What else do you have?
Well, I had the TikTok Huawei stuff, right? This crazy FUD attack on Chinese companies by the United States. I mean, this is just our country fearing they're going to lose their technological leadership, and they're claiming that you never know, they might do something evil because they're Chinese. They're different. You know, they're the argument when the argument is they're different from us, thus they are evil. That's racism. I'm sorry, that's just racism.
Yeah.
And there's never been any evidence.
Well, the youth of this country is going to obviously be corrupted by by the propaganda of twerking on TikTok.
Okay, so I don't give a crap about TikTok. That thing could disappear tonight. I wouldn't care less. But I have a bigger issue with Huawei. Not so much for the networking stuff. I feel like countries should be able to evaluate Huawei networking for its security or whatever on their own and make their own decisions. That's fine.
Yeah.
Huawei certainly has a checkered history with reliability and quality on the networking stuff. But here's the problem. I cover personal technology. Huawei makes the best phones in the world, and we can't buy them. You know, and by the way, maybe we could buy them on some kind of a black market, a third-party site or something like that. But now we can't even get Google software on them, so they're useless. I care very much about smartphone photography. Huawei has the best smartphone cameras, period. Bar none, is not even close. And yet the phones that came out this year don't have Google services, don't have Google software. They're useless. And that sucks. And that's something horrible that we did as a country to a company. Like a unilateral attack on a single company by a country is not unprecedented, but it is unusual. And
here's a question.
No evidence.
Didn't we, I could be remembering this totally wrong. 2013, didn't we do something similar with another, was it ZTE? It was another
Yeah, but ZTE
Chinese-based...
is the networking. So yeah, we went after ZTE.
Oh, we did. Okay.
But yeah. And by the way, we're still, technically, I think they're still on the list, ZTE is. The problem is that, well, the problem is what I already said, but there's also this kind of arbitrary nature of it. If we as a country, the United States, are going to decide that China is evil and we can't allow their technology to propagate, at least inside of our country, then we need to go after Chinese companies in general. But there's all these wishy-washy things there. Every single Xbox and PlayStation and iPhone and whatever else you choose to talk about is made in China. So I guess that's okay. U.S. companies are able to save money by manufacturing things in China instead of somewhere else, and there's no problems there. We're not going to worry about that stuff. It's just arbitrary. That's all. So, I'm part of the issue I had with the previous topic is that I'm fact based, and what that means is like any human being, I form opinions based on the information I have, and it's not always complete. It's not always right. And what that means is that over time, I may change my opinions about things as I learn more about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And,
well, you're a well-rounded human being, Paul.
I guess so, but whatever. I'm really interested in facts. And one thing that's never come out in this Huawei case, not once, not ever, not anywhere, is this notion that we have some evidence that proves that these guys have done anything wrong ever, even one time. And related to the topics I just talked about, Huawei is, like any big corporation, has done horrible things. Of course they have. Samsung has done horrible things. Microsoft has. Apple has. They all have. But as far as like international espionage, I'd like to see some evidence. I live in a democracy. I should be able to see that evidence. But at the very least, I should be able to hear from one of our many allies, someone, some premier, some prime minister, some president, some dictator, step up to a microphone and say, look, the United States has provided us with compelling evidence that Huawei has done something wrong, and that's why we're excluding them from our networks. No one has ever said that because the United States has never done that. It doesn't exist.
The fear
it's
of
FUD. It's just FUD.
Fear. The fear is
and I don't
sometimes
like
worse.
It's xenophobia and it's racism, and I have a problem with that. So
it's I mean on forget about reliability. But, I grew up during a time that nobody would buy a Korean car. You're going to die in that thing.
Or a Japanese car
or
if you want to go a little older. I mean, remember
Yeah.
In the wake of World War II, Japanese stuff was crap. It was considered crap. It was toys. And this is everything from electronics to cars.
Yeah, in
and
20
everything in
years, they
between.
turned it around.
Yeah, and these giant, impressive companies have come out of this. Sony in the electronic space in Japan, anyway, and obviously, Honda, Toyota, et cetera, and for cars. And then, and one of my memories that I'll never forget. I was shopping. I was going to buy my first car, and it was obviously going to be a used car. But my dad heard about a new company new to us, called Hyundai, and this is 1987. Hyundai had just come to the United States. They were supposed to be inexpensive, Korean, which was very unusual for that time. Now we have several Korean car makers, obviously. And we went down and checked it out. It was a little piece of crap, paper thin hood, and it was terrible. But the guy opened, I'll never forget this. The guy opened the hood, put down the little rod, to hold it up because it was a piece of crap. And this tiny engine is sitting in the middle of the empty space inside of the hood. It's just, you could see air all around. You could see down to the ground. And
what was it? An Excel? Honda Excel? Hyundai
yeah,
Excel?
the very first one. He said, XL. He said, I'll never forget. This is amazing. He goes, look, I know you're probably worried about the quality of the car, but he goes, the good news is this is a Mitsubishi engine.
Yes, it was. It was a Mitsubishi
And my
engine.
dad and I looked at each other and we were like, is that good? We were like, what are you talking, Mitsubishi engine? I know they make televisions. Like, what Mitsubishi? But Mitsubishi makes cars. I mean, obviously, they still do. But anyway, at the time, we were just like, I didn't buy one, by the way.
Yeah, it was I believe they came in 3 variants: a 1.2 liter, a 1.4 liter, and a 1.6 liter Mitsubishi.
Yeah, I don't remember, but
they were rear drive. They were rear wheel drive.
The other experience I had was much later in life. 10 or maybe 15 years later, probably 10 years later. Volkswagen had a car called the Fox, and the Fox was it was below the Jetta, but it was a 4-door sedan. It was a small car, and from a distance, it looked kind of nice. And I kind of liked the interior a little bit, and I was like, this is interesting. And I went down to the Volkswagen dealership with Stephanie to look at it, and the guy said, pound for pound, this is as safe as any Volvo. And I said, yeah, but it only weighs like half as much as a Volvo. So does that mean it's half as safe? He didn't have an answer.
Interesting. So I have something controversial on my list here.
Really?
Yeah.
Now you have something.
Now I have something very controversial. Okay. I'm going to say electric cars. Yeah. I'm going to for a reason here. This was, and I don't know if a lot of this has to play with the fact that obviously COVID happened and manufacturing slowed down tremendously. I'm sure that has something to do with it. But very interestingly, this year was the year everybody was gloating that it's going to be the boom of electric cars. Obviously, Tesla is a juggernaut now, and we didn't drive anywhere. But Tesla, they announced their that pickup truck, and then Chevy was having one, the Mustang electric hybrid
which, by
crossover.
The way, looks pretty cool.
It does look pretty cool. But yet another year has gone by, and this is not. Nope. Even now, with Tesla being what it is, I find it interesting that a General Motors and a Ford and a Toyota haven't come out with the product. The car.
I don't know. I feel like electric cars are inevitable.
It's going to happen. I mean,
yeah, it's happening. I think it's taking longer. It's I don't know. Electric cars are a lot more viable and realistic than self-driving cars, which are often the same thing, right? But I mean, the problem I have with electric cars isn't so much about the cars themselves. It's about everything else in the world, right? So I've been working from home for 25 years. And one of the things that's been both amusing and distressing to me is observing everyone else suddenly doing what I've been doing for over 2 decades, complaining about the things I've been complaining about for that whole time. So for example, we're all home, we're all working from home, 7 o'clock in the morning, all the trucks roll into the neighborhood and the loudest imaginable lawn machinery starts up. and everyone's mowing their lawn, driving around on these Star Wars vehicle looking things. And I've always been like, why does this stuff have to be so freaking loud? And when you think about like the rest of the world beyond cars, why aren't those machines electric? Why aren't the shipping trucks electric? Why aren't all the buses in cities electric? Why, it kind of goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And getting cars into that space is important, and it's happening, like we said. But it can't be the end of it. Like, to me, it's everything else.
Yeah.
Why are we just doing cars? I mean, I know we're not literally just, there are electric bikes, and I think there are electric motorcycle type things and so forth, but it's very small.
I think it's a number of things, right? Like right now I believe Ford has some announcement regarding battery technology. A major, and this has been the problem, right? And we've spoken about that. I mean, for years, as long as we've done the show, my father is one of these people in my entire life, and he's a big gearhead, right? He was a mechanic. He is so into electric cars, right? And he's really into better battery technology. And the problem is battery technology has not exponentially improved over the last, I mean, listen, I'm going to say 20 years because this technology, lithium-ion technology, has been around forever, but we're doing better at it, but it hasn't, I mean, like the computer processing boom, right? Like once the ball started rolling, Paul, things change really quickly. This has been a very slow process. And there's many factors here. One, it has a lot to do with the old guard really not wanting this to happen. If you're a General Motors or a Ford, do you want to redo your entire 100-year process? You don't. So you really
hold on one second, because the problem you just described is the problem with Intel. That these are companies that have been really successful doing this one thing, and their whole process is based on funneling everything through this one thing. And when confronted by the world changing, those kinds of companies, just like people too, we're all the same, right? They're all companies run by people, but I mean, we just can't adapt to it, right? I think that's one of the things that makes the Microsoft story so interesting, because they did adapt to it in ways that Intel didn't. And then for cars, you can look at Tesla as, the Apple type disruptor. They're not going to be 80% of the market in a few years, right? They're going to be 8%. You know what I mean? Because they're the guys that made it happen. But eventually the established players are going to, some of them at least, so some of them will fail, of course. But this is going to happen. Yeah, it will happen.
I hope so.
It will. It will. It has to.
No, I hope like soon. Like now. By the way, that stigma, do you remember that bizarre stigma that like electric cars aren't that fast, they're slow? I'm like, these things are unbelievably fast. The slowest
torque and 0 to 60 perspective, there's nothing faster.
Have you seen a current electric car that has a 0 to 60 under like 3.5 seconds? No.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's 4 seconds or less. Yeah, exactly.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
I mean, my Mustang, the American in me, I have a 5-liter Mustang.
Sure.
Loud. I'm getting like 7 miles a gallon.
Andrew, first of all, you're clearly a 50-year-old man on the inside.
So I am. I understand. It's a 307, by the way, Paul, not a 302. I have a 307 5-liter.
307.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have like the extra, you have the extra GPU core. It's not the MacBook Air. It's the MacBook Pro.
Yes, I have the MacBook Pro. But, because I love this stuff, but I'm probably going to be one of those guys that's like, no, nothing better than American engines, nothing better than American power, 5-liter, my LS1, listen, I grew up around that.
Those guys will be interested in the new Mustang, which, by the way, goes 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. And it, the Mach-E thing, whatever it's called.
Yeah. My friend, she just got one of the crossover Tesla, the Model 3, I think. I'm like, what a stupid looking car. All right?
I know that's actually my biggest problem with the Tesla is I think their cars are ugly.
You know what? The Tesla S looks nice, like their big sedan. Okay, that one looks good. But the other one's
the rest of them are garbage. it's a jelly bean with wheels. Okay,
so I drove this thing, Paul. Yeah. I've never driven anything like that. Like it was.
Yeah, no, it's like daunting. You're taking a rocket to the moon, and the G-force is hitting you when you take off. It's amazing, but it's still
instant power. It's all-wheel drive. It's technologically like 10 to 15 years ahead of what anybody else is doing. I was blown away by this thing, but I never buy
I
it.
look forward to owning the Ford version of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I'm curious.
that's all I can say to that.
I'm curious. It's
care
gonna
less
happen.
about Tesla, but yeah, I think so.
I'm glad that now we know where we're headed. Like there was a lot of that hydrogen power talk and everything. Like now we know.
Well, there
this
was,
is the direction.
it looked, are we going to be like 20 years of hybrid vehicles or whatever? And it's like today, I'd say no. I think we're going to go right by that.
Yeah. What do you have on your list? You want to do some rapid fire before?
Yeah, I couldn't come up. I didn't find the name of this. I apologize. But remember back in probably September, Amazon announced an indoor drone.
Yes.
And it's like it's got the little stick coming out of the bottom of it. And the idea is when it detects no one's home, it will fly around your house and just patrol your house. And then I think you can send it up and watch video of your house, make sure no one's there.
Yeah, it was almost like it was like an April Fool's device.
Yeah, you're like waiting for them like to do the presentation and be like, "Oh, you're just kidding. Who would ever want something like this? It's ludicrous." On the flip side, this is not one of the best things of 2020, but I feel compelled to mention this. Amazon also announced something called the Halo Fitness Band.
Yes,
and it doesn't have a display. The New York Times has undertaken a unilateral attack on this thing. It's crazy. It's like it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Their technology reporter finally got one. I think he just bought it normally because you have to wait. There's like a waiting list. So he didn't do it until earlier this month. I reviewed it, a month and a half ago or whatever it was. But he describes this thing as the most invasive, horrible thing in the world. And for two reasons. You can take a body scan and then you upload your body image to Amazon, which is like, oh my God, who would ever want to do that? And the other thing it does is it listens to your voice and it gives you a report on what your tone is. The idea being that if you're too aggravated all the time, you might want to tone it down or something. So this drove this guy nuts. And then it made their list of the worst technology of 2020. This guy is wrong. So first of all, those two features that I just mentioned, the body scan and the voice recording, are both optional, and you have to do them explicitly. They're not on by default and you turn them off. Like you have to do it. And so you could try it and see how it works. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. But honestly, that device works great. And for a lot of, I use the screen. So like when I work out, when I go to the gym, it tracks some things automatically. But if I start an elliptical, or if I start lifting weights, I use the screen. I'm doing this and I'm starting and I've done this and I'm finishing, and that's how it works. I use a Fitbit. But I think for other people, this is the type of device that I feel like doctors or hospitals would be comfortable handing out to their patients as a way to keep track of how they're doing over time. It does all the heart rate, the normal stuff that everything does. It's not the best of 2020. Like I wouldn't have put it on my best of list, but it's absolutely not the worst of. And I get being fearful of Amazon data collection and all that kind of stuff. But Amazon, like Google with the coming Fitbit acquisition, has been very clear that you own this data. It doesn't get used for anything else. And if you want to delete it, you can delete it. They've done what they can do for that kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not for me personally, but
I think Amazon's data collection. If your purchases ever leaked, you would know so much about an individual.
Well, that's a good point. But I mean, there again, like, not that my order list is like published online for anyone to see it, but what do I buy on Amazon, right? I mean, I bought headphones and I buy coffee. I bought this shirt I'm wearing. This is an Amazon Essentials cheap shirt. This thing cost about $12. And when it gets stained, I just buy another one. I probably have 25 of them. I buy phone cases. I bought a rechargeable battery for my Xbox controller. I mean, it's exciting stuff. It's not.
Do you and Steph share an Amazon or no?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah. Yes. It's the same account. I don't know how this works, but
I don't like sharing mine.
What do you mean?
So so Jess,
you mean like the literal same email address?
Yeah, like the same account. So we use the same account,
but she goes in through her address.
Okay.
So they're actually tied together.
But you don't see her purchases.
That's right, and she doesn't.
Okay. So Christmas gets ruined every year because Jess and I use the same account.
There's a way to do that. You should have her. Stephanie did this. I don't know how you do it, but she created an account, connected it to mine, and uses this. Well, I was going to say it uses the same payment.
Well, actually, I ended up making my own account separately
Mhm.
and doing that.
Right.
But like it kind of jumbles up the algorithm
But
for
you might
me.
want to time together for like rewards purposes, right?
Yeah.
Or to share a the Kindle library or whatever. Anyway, yeah, there's a way to do it.
Yeah. I think there's it's interesting. Any other quick ones you got?
Yeah, 5G.
Oh yeah. Deployment of
Absolutely
5G.
has not lived up to its promises this year. 5G might be. I should have thought of this ahead of time. It might be one of the most overhyped technologies of all time. And the sad thing is, I feel like eventually it's going to really matter. But the reality of 5G today is that there are two major variants of it. One of them just works like 4G and it's everywhere. And honestly, in many cases, it gets lower speeds than 4G. And the other one is that wave thing that only Verizon has in the United States. And it's like you have to be perfectly centered up to the satellite on a clear day. If you walk into
Paul.
a shadow or behind it, it doesn't work. And the promise of this thing is that, like, this is the story. This is the ultimate 5G fantasy: is you're standing in line to board a plane, which we didn't do in 2020, and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I forgot to download something on my iPad so I can watch it. And if you're on a 5G connection, you could go to Netflix and download an entire series, like 10 shows, in 37 seconds or something like that. And the idea is that's all downloaded, and then you get on the plane and you're offline and it's there, and there you go. You're flying across the ocean. It's fine. That's fascinating. But the reality of these cellular plans that everyone has, like, you were, I don't know if you did this publicly, but you were talking about it to me privately, is that they're really expensive and they're not unlimited despite their names.
Oh.
So if you downloaded a Netflix show on your 5G connection before you got on a plane, when you landed, you would discover you have no more data left.
Yep.
And also your bill is like $300.
Yeah.
And depending on the system you're on, the carrier, you might not be able to do anything about it. Like Rich Woods was complaining, like he had hit his, I think it was T-Mobile limit. And he's like, fine, I just want to pay $20 to get another gigabyte. And they're like, yeah, you can't do that. You got to wait till you're on whatever it is, 3G or something until next month. And he's like, but I'm on day 5 of the month. It's like, I just made a mistake.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, sorry. And that's the dark side of 5G that no one's really talking about. But if they ever do fix 5G, you better hope they come out with real unlimited plans.
Well,
because
you hit the nail on the last one before we wrap it up. But I was going to go with the carriers on my worst of. And I'm going to explain to you a scenario that played out for me. I'm not saying that this is, I'm accurate with my...
Is this what you were complaining to me about?
My conspiracy. I have a conspiracy here. This is an absolute conspiracy. So, when I got the iPhone 11, my wife also got it too. And it was a time that they were doing their new Verizon plans, right?
Okay.
So when I went with my unlimited phone, I'm like, I just want to get a new phone. Somehow my phone went on the starter unlimited plan, right? So I have
Which, by the way, is itself ludicrous.
Okay.
So starter unlimited plan.
This one is on whatever unlimited. This is on the starter unlimited, and my wife's is on the play more unlimited. So I'm like, okay, what difference does it make? I'm like, I don't know what it is. I looked at the spec. It was like, do you want to stream HD content? I'm like, I really don't consume a lot of HD video on this thing. So whatever. I just let it be. I didn't even bother. But over the summer, because I'm home, I'm sitting in my backyard, and I can't even stream Spotify, right? Like, there's no service. I can't be on TikTok. TikTok is another great example. I can't scroll TikTok because the service is abysmal, the 4G service. And I can't figure it out because it's not always like that. It's normally really good. And it's been like this for months that my 4G is abysmal. In my house, at work, it's frustrating because on this phone, perfectly fine. On this one, terrible. Like right now I have 5 bars, okay? Rarity. Yeah. I never had 5 bars. I had like 2 bars tops, nothing. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what? I need to have a hotspot because I like to have a mobile hotspot, especially for my car. So I'm like, I need to upgrade now to have a hotspot because the starter plan doesn't have it.
No.
I went and I updated to the $55 one instead of the $35 one. Mm-hmm. What do you know? 5 bars. I'm getting 100 megabits down. I'm getting, all of a sudden, it's almost like they were, and I'm not saying they are doing this. I know that they do network prioritization, and I don't know if this is what it is, but my service became totally like unbelievable from just changing the plan. And I don't have any logic. I don't understand how that even happened.
You're paying $20 more a month. See, it's a pay for play.
But is that a thing? This is a question I'm asking the audience.
So I didn't say this to you at the time, I don't think, but what went through my head, maybe I did say this, but the thing that went through my head was, this isn't why. It's weird. For many years, well, no, not many years, for 3 years-ish, I haven't been using like a major carrier. I switched to AT&T in 2007 to get on the iPhone. At one point, I had multiple AT&T accounts because I was testing phones, and that seemed like it made sense. And then in, I want to say 2015, probably, but if not 2016, I switched to Google Fi. And since then, I've been on these, what are they called? NVMOs or whatever, these smaller kind of pseudo carriers. Now I'm on Mint Mobile. But anyway, I look at the way Verizon in particular, they're in many ways the worst one, but you use them, you live in New York, you want the best connection. They obviously, they have the best network and all that stuff. There are reasons people use it. But like the experience you had recently is not exactly why, but is kind of why I don't use any of the major carriers, because that's what they do. Like they're just, it's stupid. And most people wouldn't even know that it could be better.
So I thought I'm going nuts, right? Like I don't want to talk about it on the air without me trying something. So you know what I did? I have another phone on my plan. Same exact thing. You know what I did?
Right.
I downgraded it, this one, to the starter plan. Mm-hmm. And guess what, Paul? Service is shit. So
sure.
Is this a fluke? Is this a glitch? I don't know. All I could tell you is since November of last year, I have been barely able to do anything on Wi-Fi, on LTE on this thing. And all of a sudden now, I have 100 megabits down, and I have about 60 megabits up.
Right.
But it does say network prioritization. So to me, that's exactly what it would mean. That I would have network priority to hit certain towers or get more speed allocated to me.
I think you need to start a Verizon conspiracy theory channel on YouTube and then monetize it somehow and then use other people's videos and images and to see if anyone complains.
Can I start it off by saying, like, what is up, guys? Andrew here. And today we're talking about
What's up,
the
dog?
evils of Verizon. What's up, dog?
Yeah, put your hat on backwards.
I will.
Have like a Verizon logo with a line through it.
That's actually a great idea. All right, Paul, let's wrap it up. You want to do like 10 minutes of a bonus show?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. There you go. I got a shirt from Paul. Guys, if you're watching this live, stay tuned. We're going to continue a couple more minutes of our bonus show. If not, if you're listening to the podcast, I thank you for subscribing to the podcast. This was a bizarre year for nearly every single person on this planet. And this is the last show of the year. And my God, I hope 2021 brings you everything you imagined 2020 would bring. Listen, guys, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. Everything is fine. It's going to get better. I say that to myself every day just to get out of bed at this point. But if you enjoy the show, hey, help us out. Subscribe to us on Patreon, patreon.com/whatthetech. You could go there. We do our bonus show each week. It's a little as $1 per episode. You can fund us, and it helps. I got to pay. Suncast has been a lifesaver this year. This guy's worked so hard at producing all our content. It helps pay him. It helps do our upgrades. I lost another camera. My daughter, by mistake, knocked over my Sony A7 II, and it's totally dead. And the repair is going to cost me as much as it's going to cost to get a new one. So we still need to do upgrades. I mean, that's just the nature of it. What are you going to do? You can't get mad. It was an accident. So that goes to funding this, to building this network and building the shows. And we have a lot of cool stuff coming up this year. Again, Paul, I want to say this. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that we do the show. I really am. One of the best people in my life, and I truly appreciate doing this with you all these years. Honestly, it's been. This was supposed to be a one-off. You were supposed to come on once.
Yeah.
And then it turned into this, and I'm extremely
I became
grateful
like
that
a barnacle on the edge of the
you
ship.
did, and it's your show. It's not you're not a guest, it's your show. So yeah, I absolutely love you guys, everybody that watches, and I thank you. And listen, I'll see you in the new year. We'll do some cool stuff. If you're watching live, stay tuned. We got What to Talk coming. So we'll see y'all next time. Adios, amigos.
So I want to grab a drink before we start.
Go ahead.
This.
$10 from Bob Hazelwood. Merry Christmas to Andrew and Paul. Bob, thank you.
Also have a technical question.
Yes.
When I post the show every time we record, I usually go to the page that you have on gfqnetwork.com.
Yes.
And the page for the episode.
Okay.
And if you inspect, use the dev tools, you can go into the source code or the sources, and there's like a file listing of like the site, right? So because it's like a WordPress site, you go to like WP content, uploads, the year number, the month number, and then inside there are the images. And up until about a month ago, inside of that folder was the full size like hero image.
Yeah.
But as of a month or so ago, now it's only like a 218 by 120.
Do you want me to make your life a lot easier and just have Suncast email you all?
I was going to ask, either you could just tell me where it is now, because I've literally looked through the entire like folder structure. I can't find it.
I have no idea. You know what?
No, I know it's kind of a weird. I know. So yeah, if you could just send me the image, that's fine too. Yeah. I don't mind. I'm not trying to make work. I didn't mean it like. I didn't want for him to have to do work.
No, 2 seconds. It's fine. We could do that.
Okay. I'll be right back.
No worries. Go ahead. So guys, while Paul's getting his drink, let's hang out a little bit. No, listen, man, it's been a crazy year. I have a huge announcement for the people that watch Mat Men. I have a tremendous announcement tomorrow, like a blockbuster, a major show changing announcement tomorrow. So this week has been a lot of ups and downs. Like I'm kind of shell shocked from everything. With everything that happened with Chris and the holidays and COVID, and I had to essentially terminate my entire staff for my other job. I don't even know like what. I don't know how to feel. If that makes any sense to you guys, like it's rare for me to be kind of not know how to react to things, and I've hit that point. Is Rich getting a Section 8? Possibly. It's possible. No, we got a huge announcement. Out of left field, too. I don't think a lot of you guys would have anticipated, but I suggest you guys observe what we are going to do tomorrow. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to show Paul this when he comes back. All right. So, by the way, Paul, you want to talk about a drink?
Oh, boy.
Look at this. Look at this classy drink.
Is it the 1970s again? What's going on?
Oh, man. I got to tell you, I am such a piece of trash. This is what I drink.
You mean like white trash?
Like total Queens white trash. Like, this is my father's beer. This is what I still drink. I love a big tall boy, especially in the middle of the afternoon.
It was the first beer I ever drank, and I hated it. Maybe I was onto something.
A Budweiser? No, I absolutely love it. Yeah. It's terrible. I know it is. It's not. Listen, I love beer. I love IPAs. I'm a big beer. I mean, Paul knows. I also love wine, but there's nothing better than a shit beer from my childhood.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. You ready, Paul? Let's do this. And we will begin in a 3 and a 2 and a 1. Hey, everybody, welcome to What the Talk. This is our bonus show we recorded live each and every week exclusively on patreon.com/whatthetech. I'm Andrew Zarian. I'm joined by Mr. Bunny Ears himself, Paul Thurrott.
Right.
No, you got, what are those? Antlers?
Antlers.
You got antlers on. I don't know if you know what this is, Paul.
It's a flip phone.
Do you know which phone this is?
No.
So I just found this. Look how tiny this thing is. I mean, just for comparison reasons, right?
Even
just
given the
found
size of that lid, this display is so small.
here. So crazy.
Yeah.
This was my phone junior year of high school, and it sucked. And every time you use it, it gave you a headache. This is before everybody had earbuds. I would get a headache from this phone
boy.
every time I used it.
Sounds healthy.
Yes, God knows what it did, but this is the last show of the year. Is it the last one? Are you doing Windows Weekly next week, or no?
Yeah, next week for some reason we are. I don't know why, but yeah, not super happy about that.
You know, I wanted to ask you about this because you really, I'm talking about Chris early on and podcasting and stuff. I haven't asked you this, but where do you see podcasting headed? You've been doing this since the beginning. I mean, really, almost 15 years. You're one of the OGs when it comes to this, especially on the tech side. Where do you see it headed?
I mean, where it's going is away from us. I mean, what's going on with my hair? I just I just talked about this with my wife. This isn't something from this year, but I would say over the past 2 to 3 years, podcasts have evolved to include, fiction podcasts and everything you can imagine. I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's really hard to find the good ones. There's so much of it.
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of evolved like, TV or TikTok videos and, YouTube, et cetera. I mean, it's neat. I've even done things like I mentioned in the episode we just did, this Sunset Sound or Sunset Studios video, because it's basically just two guys sitting at a desk talking. The video I referenced, I actually listened to just the audio while I was working out at the gym. And so like there's a little YouTube video playing on my home screen while I'm doing it, I guess. But I mean, that type of thing is great too. So it's everything from what used to be like audio books are kind of podcasts. And you can kind of see like Audible has podcasts, music services like Spotify have podcasts, Amazon Music has podcasts. Podcasts have exploded, over the past couple of years. And I think it keeps going. You might remember the name of it, but there was a podcast. It's bugging me. I can't think of the name of it, but Amazon turned it into a limited run TV series. The first season had Julia Roberts in it, and they just did the second season this past year with a different cast, mostly a different cast. So it started as a podcast and became like a TV series. I mean, it's gone very mainstream.
Yeah, it has.
So if you like news or real stories or true crime or, like I said, fiction of all kinds, the types of things like in the past, like people might have read like romance novels. I assume there's a bunch of romance novel type podcasts. I mean, there have to be. So no matter, it's like the rest of the internet in some ways. It's evolved to the point where, no matter what you like, American Scandal, NPR, Wondery, whatever, there are amazing networks that serve, I don't want to say particular audiences necessarily, though in some cases, I guess they do. There's something for everybody now.
I still have a real hard time. I still have a real hard time finding shows that, like you said, finding you actually, your assessment of this is absolutely perfect. It is going away from us. It's no longer about us. It's no longer about the radio guy. It really isn't. It's not about the radio guy either. It's about the celebrities.
There's a place for that, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's about the mainstream, NBC having a companion product. A couple of years ago, I mean, quite a few years ago, almost a decade ago, I was contacted by the guys over at CBS. This is actually really funny, and I rarely talk about it. Do you know what the biggest show I've ever done is? My biggest podcast of all time. Most people would say this. This show does tremendous. 250,000 downloads, well, probably more than that. Probably 300,000 downloads a month for the show. We still treat it. I mean, my whole thing is, listen, I love doing it and I like to have fun doing it. And if we can make money doing it, that's great. But this was not the biggest show. The wrestling show's not the biggest show. The biggest show I ever did was a Big Brother recap show, the reality show.
Oh, it's
That
funny.
sh-
That's funny. I was going to go
in
down that direction.
in 2011,
Hmm.
I was getting about 500,000 downloads per show. I want you to think about that. 500,000 downloads on a 35-minute podcast recapping what happened on Big Brother. I never made a dime off of it. I couldn't monetize it. I had no idea because, again, everything was new. But the show did so well, I just didn't want to do it anymore. I hated the show. I didn't like the TV show. I just did it because my wife would watch it. She's like, "Hey, let's do the show." I'm like, "All right, let's do it." And blew up. All the
By the
website
way,
picked it up.
that kind of content makes sense to me. Like I think we had talked in the past about like the Walking Dead back when I used to actually watch that when it was on TV live. So you'd watch it every Friday night or whatever it was, Sunday night, I guess. There was after a while, after a few seasons or after 5 or 6 seasons, whatever time frame it was, they had like a talk show afterwards called The Talking Dead, and it would be like a live thing where people, it was about
Chris
the show
Hardwick.
you just watched. Yeah, and and we watched that for a couple of years, and I kind of hated myself for watching it because it was just, you had to put up with a lot of irritating nonsense to get, whatever. But you wanted, for whatever reason, you were a fan of the show, you wanted to learn more about it. I actually think the thing you're describing, where someone creates a podcast and it's audio or video, but I would audio for me, but audio or video, whatever, and discusses an episode, especially today in the wake of Lost, where so many shows are so complicated, and you really need people who understand all the ins and outs and all the references, and did you catch this little thing, whatever. I think a podcast is the right medium for that kind of content. Like, I think that's a good way to do it.
Listen, my wrestling show has exploded over the last year. While wrestling is dwindling, the viewership is obviously, it's down like 20% year over year. They're getting about 2 million views compared to 10, in the height 20 years ago, it was like a 10 million viewership a night product. Now it's down to 2 million. But my viewership has exploded over the last year because people like the after conversation. They don't have the ability to go into work and have that person to sit there and talk about what they're interested in.
There's no one at work that wants to talk about this topic. Yeah,
but
exactly.
But for me, I do the show on a Thursday morning at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And the chat room is filled, and we do these watch-alongs. So that's our thing now on pay-per-view nights. We sit there, and people watch us watch the pay-per-view and have a conversation about it. We'll get a couple thousand, 6,000 people, 10,000 people, 30,000 people that come and watch this. And it's interesting to me because there's going to be two scenarios, right? There's three. There are three levels. One, there's the serial style narration towards a podcast. It's a narrator telling you and giving you the information with production elements. Yeah, that's its own thing, which is spoken word. Listen,
but
that's how radio was.
It's experts or some group of people having a conversation about it, basically responding to what you just saw in a way, right? And
well, that's cool. One of them. Yeah, that's one of them.
Another.
Yeah, so you have the serial style where it's more of production. You're gonna have this that it's more of a conversation and more radio style because that's what influenced me. Sure. And then you have the big network recaps that goes along with every podcast, every show that they produce. That is going to be, I think that's going to be the big kicker. The companion shows, that's where they're going to see the most success when it comes to podcasting. However, this year, if you look at podcasting numbers, it's down about 20%. People are not listening to podcasts.
Well, okay. So, I mean, part of what happened this year, of course, with the pandemic is that people aren't commuting, and that was probably a big chunk of it. But I would hope and I expect that as the year went on, people have found the time to listen to that kind of content in other in other ways, right? So, one of the more fascinating things that kind of Microsoft came out with this year was, because they're studying the pandemic and working from home, and they're trying to adapt their products so that they're better for this kind of new world we're in, was, we're missing this commute. The commute is that the time when you make that transition between home and work, or reverse. And it's mentally healthy to have a time when you're making that transition. I mean, nobody wants an hour-long commute, but whatever the time frame is, if it's 15 or 30 or 45 or whatever, you know, we all have our little rituals. Maybe you read a book or the paper, or you listen to a podcast, whatever it is. And that's how you make that transition. And that's what's missing now. You know, if you're working from home and you had never done this before, you're used to commuting, and your first thought is like, this is great, I don't have to commute anymore. After a while, you start to miss the interactions you might have had with people at work. But maybe a lot of people didn't really know this or think of this, but you actually were missing your commute too. So
Yeah.
it's healthy if you can just walk around the block or whatever. You don't have to listen to a podcast, but maybe you want to. Maybe just to have that mental transition. It might be one of the reasons why people aren't sleeping as well. Why, you know, there's so much anxiety and stress, and that's one of the little things you can do, I think. I mean, I'm not a healthcare worker or anything, and I don't do it myself either, but I listen. But I've been working from home for like 25 years, so I listen to podcasts and audiobooks and whatever else in the car when I'm at the gym working out. That's my commute or whatever, you know.
Yeah. I think we're in a weird transition period for this, because really for a long time it was just like a bunch of radio guys and a bunch of tech guys that were doing podcasts.
Yeah. No, but now it's everything. And
now it's everything.
That's how you know. I mean, I used to always, I had a friend, Chris, back in Boston. I used to always use him as my gauge for whether anything had gone mainstream, right? Because when it entered his radar, that meant it was mainstream, right? And so MP3 players were like that. I remember one day, you know, as a lifelong music lover, he one day was like, I want to get an MP3 player, you know. Sadly, the first one he got was a Dell, whatever the Dell one was called, but because this was a million years ago. But you know, same thing with smartphones, like iPhone style smartphones, and you know, podcasts are on that list too. It's like when someone who's not technical or not in our industry, like my wife or some, you know, your wife, if someone I would call normal, not because we're abnormal, but we're technical, whatever. When they start asking about it or knowing about it or doing it, that's how you know it's reaching a different audience. And the people like us who have been doing what we've been doing, you know, we can still do it, and there's hopefully an audience for that. But we're not the you know, we're not the mainstream. We're not the big chunk of it. It's the Wonderies and those companies.
My 5-year-old daughter came up to me 2 days ago and said, she's like, Daddy, do you do a podcast? I'm like, yeah, where did you hear that? Where did you hear that? She's like, oh, I was watching a show on YouTube and they were talking about a podcast, and it looked like they talk in front of a microphone.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I do a podcast. She goes, oh, okay. Like, she's 5. A 5-year-old now knows what that is. Yeah. You know,
there you go.
I find it, listen, this is my dream to do this, right? I was a big radio fan. The fact that I have a radio studio set up in my house is something that I never fathomed it would be possible. And you're, you know, how many miles? 300 miles away?
Yeah.
In your studio. And we're doing this
3,000 miles away. I mean, it would still be fine.
And we're doing this we're streaming this in high definition to about 150 people right now.
So I'm listening to is it Wondery? I guess it's Wondery. There's a podcast called American Scandal, and they go through multi-episode stories. And they did Enron was one of them a couple of years ago. The most recent one is about the Unabomber, and there was a great Netflix series about the Unabomber.
Yeah, very good.
Watched. Yeah, and there's a new one now about the Atlanta Olympic bombing, Richard Jewell and Eric Rudolph and all that. So anyway, the Unabomber came up, and I'm like, great, this is a story I'm interested in. I'm listening to it. I love the guy who does him. He's just got a great voice and really well done. And they're talking about the part where they finally capture the guy, and then his brother, who had tipped off the FBI that was probably him, wakes up one day and there's all these TV news trucks out in front of his house. And that reminded me of the time a couple of 2, 3, 4 years ago, whatever, my wife and I went to DC, and we visited the, I think it's called, it's called the Museum, and it might be gone now. It was going to be closing. It's one of the few private museums in Washington, DC. But one of the many things, they have like the the top of one of the towers from the World Trade Center's in there. They have the Unabomber's cabin is in there. It's an amazing museum. If it's still there, go. But one of the things they have in there is a display where it is that giant news truck with the giant, cherry picker antenna thing on the top of it. And the idea was, if you needed to go to a remote location and broadcast from there, this is what you needed in 1995. And then next to it, there was an iPhone, and they were like, if you need to do it today, this is what you use,
Yeah.
And that's what podcasts are like. It's like, in the old days, to do a radio show, you had to go to a place. They had an incredible setup, and you had a broadcast range that was based on whatever their antennas were like, and radios or whatever. And now, we, like you said, we're at home. We have a webcam, we have a microphone, and where we are does not matter. We can be live on the internet like we are. We can record, and people can watch or listen to this anytime. It's incredible. I mean,
I think the big problem is going to be people breaking in now. It's going to be way harder than it was for me.
Because there's so much of it now. Yeah.
There's so much of it. There's so much content. You don't know. And another thing that it's a big problem is that a lot of these companies like Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, they don't do a good job at highlighting content, featuring content. It's all about the big names. It's about the CBS and the NBC.
Right. Okay. I was gonna say, it depends.
That's what it's about.
It's become, it's a money's game.
We've been an Apple partner for 10 years. It would be one phone call I would make, and I would say, hey, listen, I got a big show this week. Would you be able to feature it on the front page? No problem, Andrew. You got it. It was like that until about 3 years ago. Now it's you need to fill out what it is, what kind of language are you using, how adult is this content, are you saying anything that is that may be considered a little taboo.
This is the Tim Cook effect.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm not going to say the company, okay? Because I don't want, and I'm not saying this in a negative way or a positive. I'm just saying, I was asked if my podcast is a minority-run podcast when I sent it to feature it. Wow. And my response was, what difference would that make? If the content is good, the content is good. I mean, you want me to use that card? Yeah, fine. I could use that card. I'm from the Middle East. My family immigrated here in 1979. So yeah, you want to use? I don't want to use that. That's nonsense. That's not deserved.
Right. Well, I mean, this is just like that YouTube internet thing we talked about earlier. I mean, it's things have evolved, and there's a lot of good that comes out of it.
Yeah,
but it's gonna be the dark side too.
Listen, it's so much bureaucracy involved in everything, and I get it. Listen, there's nothing more than I would want to be doing right now than this. This is really, I mean, you talk about your true passion and love. This is it. This is my passion.
Yeah.
Talking about technology, talk about wrestling. That's my two things.
Quite a mix.
Quite a mix, and also my day job is bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the, sure. You know what that is? Like, you kind of look at me. I know this. People look at me and they try to figure me out, right? There's multiple levels. They try to figure out, what am I, right? They're like, well, what is he? Then it's,
what are you?
What are you? You know how many times I get that? What are you? I get that. Right. Then when I start talking, you start realizing, oh, shit, he doesn't fit what I thought he would be. I get that. Then it turns into, I totally break I break them with my topics of interest. The fact that I could be into professional wrestling at the extent that I am, the fact that I could be into the other side hobbies that I have, my career, because I don't fit that mold of what you expect in that career, and then the fact that I'm talking about technology for years, and then you start finding about my life story, and you're like, wow, that's weird. Things don't add up, and I think that, I always faced that in my mind. I never thought about it, but until recently, somebody said, you're a conundrum. That's how they described me. Yeah.
You're an enigma wrapped in something. I don't know.
Listen, I got a bunch of friends that are ball busters, but one of my best friends, he goes, every time you start talking, I expect a different accent to come out. That's what he said to me. I've been friends with him my whole life, He's like, the New York accent is not the first thing that comes to mind when I think of you.
A friend of mine texted a bunch of us and said, "Hey, my brother just told me that my Facebook profile says that I like both men and women." And
Oh,
he said,
yes.
"Can you guys just look at it and say, just tell me if that's what it says?" So I wrote him back and I said, "John, I just want you to know that we will always love you no matter what you are."
I think it's the eyebrows that throw people off with me. It's all the eyebrows. The eyebrows. Forget about the beard and the hair. But nobody in the world has these eyebrows.
Wow.
Until I find you. I will find you. If you have these eyebrows, I will find you. You will not exist anymore. Listen, I think it's, God, crazy year. It's over. Thank God. And then hopefully next year you'll be able to come here and we'll be back to our normal debauchery in New York City.
I was positive I was going to get to New York before the end of this year.
Positive. I was too. I was positive this would not be going on.
Yep.
You know, and I'm pretty conservative with making this assumption. I would have bet anything by mid-September, this was over. Gone.
Yeah.
We're looking back and we're saying, my God, I can't believe we lived through this.
Good at predicting the future, as it turns out.
You can't. Listen, you can't. It just showed you. You know, this was actually interesting because you got to see that all these forecasting experts, financial forecasting, real estate, political forecast, like everything, they had it all wrong. Everybody had everything wrong. And at the end of the day, it's all a guess. Nobody knows. The fact that we were able to get a vaccine this quickly is sheer modern science, or maybe not. Maybe it's red tape being cut. I don't know, but it's unbelievable. There were multiple lessons here, but the other lesson was that I'm talking about the mega countries, right? The powerhouses,
the mega company,
countries, like the top 10 countries in the world. There is nobody had the advantage with this. Nobody had the advantage of developing a vaccine, vaccinating their population, and fixing it. Everybody was on the same path. Everybody, that's the reality. It doesn't matter. Forget about if China's vaccine works better than Pfizer's or Moderna or whatever. At the end of the day, they all came out at the same time. It was the same process. Will one be better than the other one? I'm sure, but there was nobody that had a leap. Yeah. You know, it's America. I grew up. My family came to this country. My mother's family, honestly, when they immigrated here, they believed that the streets were paved in gold. Right? My buddy has the best joke. He's from India. He goes, you know how people say, like, my family came here and they said, my streets are paved in gold. The streets are paved in gold in America. We just cared that the streets were paved.
Yes,
that was the most. I'll never go. My grandmother told me this.
Yeah.
My grandmother, when they came here in 77, 78, my grandmother said that she couldn't believe how rich this country was because they heated the streets in Manhattan.
Heated the streets.
She's talking about the steam, the steam, smoke that comes up from the subways. I mean, listen, it's. I have those stories.
It's not. We're not heating the streets. That's the subway butthole.
That's a subway butthole.
It's just,
that's its flatulence. The subways.
Exactly.
But listen, man, it's a crazy year. What can we do? All right, let's wrap it up. My kids are home. Right on the dot. My kids are home. They're screaming, "Daddy, where are you?" So, time to go play dad now instead of podcast, instead of radio.
A happy Christmas.
You too, Paul. All right, tell everybody I said hello. Love you, and I'll see you next year.
You bet. I love you too.
I'll see you guys. Goodbye, chat room.
It's always the thing, like Chris told